Yeah, so in the last lecture, we have done the very important results named as Markov inequality, Chebyshev inequality, and finally the weak law of large number. Okay, and these inequalities, especially giving found on certain uh, probabilities, means if you have if you don't have means like enough number of information. Okay, but still, and only few with the few information, you can certainly talk about the what will be the maximum bound or maximum probability for happening such thing. Okay, so you have the Markov inequality gives you that if you have a random variable which is a non-negative random variables, means that take the values greater than equals to 0. Okay, then for any a positive, the probability of x greater than equals to a is bounded by the expectation of x by a. Okay, right. So in a case of a non-negative random variable, you need only the average value. Okay, that what is the average value, then you can give the maximum bound of probability of x greater than equals to a. Okay, right. So we will try to uh, understand this in more ways, like by giving some examples. Okay, proof I already explained to you in the continuous case, and I asked you to complete it for discrete case as well. And Chebyshev's inequality does not use the fact that x is a non-negative random variable. So it can take either non-negative value or positive value or both, non-negative value or non-positive value or both of them. So, but what you need is you require the mean and variance. Okay, those the two things only should be known. Then, so you have the bound for this, from where you can certainly talk about. It's like in the similar fashion, you have Markov inequality, you have additional more information about the random variable. Means in addition to mean, you know the variance of the x, and then x is in x may be a non-negative, assume the non-negative value or non-positive value. Then the probability of this event is less than equals to sigma square by k square. And since the variance, whenever sigma x square is finite, okay, because if sigma square is infinite, it is always true for any right, because probability of any event is always less than equals to 1. So this means this must be less than equals to 1. You can say sigma square by k square is less than equals to 1. Then this bound works. Okay, if it is not less than 1, means it is obviously true, because probability of any event is less than 1. Okay, so it may be chance that sigma square by k square is more than 1. Okay, maybe more than 1, maybe less than 1, maybe infinity. Okay, so if it is more than 1 or infinity, nothing to prove. Okay, but if you have less than 1 or less than equals to 1, then you have to look at here. Now what it tells you is essentially when k is tending to infinity, the light side tending to 0, and it essentially in magnitude sense what it is telling is x is far apart from mean, x going far apart from mean, that probability is essentially going to 0. Okay, so this is what we also have understood through the weak law of large number. Okay, so where you have the sequence of IID random variables, and with each having mean which is denoted by mu. Okay, so it is important to note that here the weak law of large number will work for identically distributed independent random variables. Okay, so you both share the same distribution and they all are independent. Okay, then let's say their mean is mu, then then sample mean you can talk about. Okay, the sample mean is going to be almost equals to the expected value of the random variable. For any epsilon bigger than 0, if this probability is tending to 0 as n tends to infinity, that means if you take a large data, that is actually converts to the mean expected value mu. Okay. Maybe in future means you are going to look at the estimate predict this expected estimation. Okay, so where this mu is mean expected variable x, which can be approximated or estimated by the sample mean. Okay, so this sample mean give you the best approximator, okay, or estimator to predict the expected value. Okay, so if you have a if you take some big data, okay, and if you assume some of the uniform conditions there, that you have random variables I, D, and that the sample mean tends to the expected mean value. Okay, so certainly you can work with the sample mean there, which will be a good estimator for the expected value. Okay, maybe you don't know about the random variable. Okay, you don't have any information about its distribution, but you are sure that that's going to be converges to the mean expected value. Okay, right. Okay, so we have already seen the proof here. Okay, so now let's look at some example. Okay, let's say one example is as follows. Suppose that it is known that the number of items produced in a factory during a week is a random variable with mean 50. So I only do have this information that it is not that the number of items produced in a factory during a week is a random variable with mean 50. So x and expected value of x is 50. Okay, then what can be said about the probability that this week's production will exceed 75. Number of items exceeds 75. We are interested in finding the probability of x if x denotes the number of items produced in a factory during a week, and that you require x is greater than 75. You don't know about the distribution, but certainly the Markov inequality tells you that, see, when you have the certain company production is there, it is a non-negative random variable. So Markov inequality conditions are true. X is a non-negative random variable. So there is a production, either it will be one item or two item and so on. Okay, or zero. Okay, there is no talk about, we cannot minus there. Okay, so it's a non-negative random variable. So this tells you that this is going to be Markov inequality tells you that less than equals to expectation of x by 75. And with mean 50 is given, so 50 is the mean by 75, that is nothing but 2 by 3. Okay, so that is going to be 0.6666. Okay, now let's consider one more part of this here. If the variance, let's say another information is given, if the variance of a week's production, variance of a week's production is known to equal 25, then what can be said about the probability that this production, that this week's production will be between 40 and 60. Will be between 40 and 60. So you are interested in finding probability of x random variable which is lies 40 less than x less than 60. Okay, now this can be written as probability of mod of x minus 10 less than 50. Okay, I can rewrite this. In this case, these are both are equivalent. Okay, right. Now this is equals to 1 minus probability of mod x minus 10 greater than equals to 50. Okay, so since mean is 50, so we can talk about the mean here. Okay, so instead of 10 we can use certainly here, instead of this we can use this, because we are talking about we want to apply some of the inequality, so we are talking about the mean. So x minus 50, mean is 50 less than 10, that is also same. Mod of x minus 50 greater than equals to 10. Now Chebyshev's inequality tells you that probability of x minus 50 about the mean greater than equals to k, that is 10, is going to be less than equals to sigma x square by 10 square. So that's through Chebyshev's inequality. Now variance is given to you 25, divide by 100, that is going to be 1 by 4. So this implies probability of mod x minus 50 less than equals to less than 10 is going to be greater than equals to. So if you multiply by minus here the both sides, so inequality will change. So 1 minus of mod x minus 50 greater than equals to 10, which is greater than equals to 1 minus 1 by 4, that is equals to 3 by 4. So production lies between number of item 40 and 60. The probability is 3 by 40. Okay, right. So let's say use of here Chebyshev's inequality, because we can use this fact because the additional information that sigma x square is given. Okay, right. Now let's take one more example. Okay, suppose that a sequence of IIT, what I mean by IIT means independently identically distributed, means the sequence of random variables x1, x2, xn are and so on. Okay, you have the sequence of x1, x2 and so on, xn and so on, are independent and share the same distribution function, same CDF. We say that these are IID, means all of the random variables are independent and they share the same CDF. Means one of them is uniform random variable, all of them are uniform random variable. One of them is binomial or Poisson, that we are going to learn soon, geometric. So they all are the same. Okay, that's mean of IID. Okay, so suppose that a sequence of IID is performed. Okay, suppose that a sequence of IID is performed. Let E be a fixed event. Let E be a fixed event, and this P of E denotes the probability that, okay, denotes the probability that E occurs on a given trial, on a given trial, on a given trial. Okay, right. So now you have this E. Let E be a fixed event, and probability of A denotes the probability that E occurs on a given trial. So each trial that E event is occurring. Okay, so either E event occurs or does not occur. Okay, either E event occurs or does not occur. Okay, so we can consider this IID as an indicator random variable. Okay, so let xi is equals to, assume the value 1 if E occurs on a trial I. So ith trial is given by the random variable xi. So 0 if E does not occur on a trial I, for which you know what will be the variance. So these xi's, I is equals to 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. Okay, so this is sequence of random variables. So each trial, whether the event occur or not can be identified by this indicator random variable xi. Okay, now once we have this definition, so then what will denote this? So x1 plus x2 plus and so on plus xn. Suppose you're talking about the sum of these random variables. So what this will denote is nothing but the number of times E occurs in the first n trials. Okay, so nth partial sum you can say. Okay, so that's going to be, this represents number of times that E occurs in the first n trials. Okay, Now from this, so we have already find out what is the expected value of xi. So expected value of xi mean is equals to, is nothing but 1 into probability of occurrence of E plus 0 into probability of occurrence of E, that is equals to probability of E. Okay, and which is same for every. Okay, so this implies mu, so this is true for all I. So mu is equals to probability of E. So each share the same mean. Okay, and they are IID random variables, each share the same mean. So from here you can also identify what will be the possible variance of this random variable, because they are independent. So variance of x1 plus variance of xi is, we have already found. Okay, so variance of xi square, we have already variance of xi is equals to probability of E time 1 minus probability of E. Okay, that we have already identified. Okay, right. Now we are in, now we want to, since we have seen this is a IID, so you can only think about now weak law of large number. Okay, not Chebyshev or Markov inequality. We have now, for the standard result is for weak law of large number. Now, so let's take the sample mean. So let you have yn is equals to x1 plus x2 plus and so on plus xn by n. This is sample mean, or instead of this I may use the standard notation here. Okay, so what is that is x bar. Okay, x bar we are going to use as maybe in further, so Gagan will use it as a sample mean. Okay, it's again a random variable, because sum of random variable is again a random variable, and whose expectation value can be verified. That is going to be 1 by n of summation I equals to 1 to n expectation of xi, but each equals to mu, so n time mu, so that's going to be mu, and that is nothing but probability of E. Similarly, variance of x bar, you can look at it, that's going to be 1 by m square summation I equals to 1 to n variance of each xi. These are independent random variables, so covariances are 0. Now each variance is equal to sigma x square, right? So this we can denote it by sigma x square. They are equal for each I. Okay, so this is n times sigma x square. So this tells you sigma x square by n. Okay, so we have both the information now. Now, weak law of large numbers tells you that probability of this sample mean x bar minus mu greater than epsilon will tends to 0 as n tends to infinity for every epsilon bigger than 0. So what it tells you essentially is, in the long run, the sample mean is nothing but the expected value. Okay, so this is nothing but the expected value in the long run, and okay, and that you can okay, that we may see more results based on this when we talk about the special cases of or special type of random variables. Okay, right. Now you can certainly apply the since this x bar is a non-negative random variable. See, because each xi can assume either 1 value or 0 value, positive value. So each xi is a summation of this is x bar. If n is fixed, okay, suppose n is fixed, then you only can talk about the Chebyshev's inequality and Markov's inequality here. Okay, so this x bar, so from the Markov inequality, you can certainly say, so Markov inequality, what it gives is, here is Markov inequality gives you that probability of x bar greater than a is less than equals to expectation of x by a. Okay, right. So what it tells you is, let's say mu by a. Okay, so now see, if you talk about a, for a, any a greater than 0. Now if you fix this a by a equals to mu, so probability of x bar greater than mu is less than equals to 1. So that's obvious true. Similarly, a is equals to root mu, square root of mu. That's going to give you that less than equals to square root of mu. So you can now take various examples. So a equals to mu case. You can take a is equals to square root of mu. Okay, or a may be a sigma x square and so on. Similarly, Chebyshev's inequality gives you what? So Chebyshev's inequality. So Chebyshev's inequality does not require the non-negativity of the random variable. So that tells you probability of x bar minus mu greater than k is less than equals to sigma x square by k square. Right? So this is another Chebyshev's inequality. Okay. So now you can work with the k as sigma square or something. Okay. So that you can fix so for any k. Right. Okay. So now we are in position to now define now special type of random variables, which you are maybe already familiar in some other words. Okay. Right. So let's suppose. Okay. Suppose that a trial or an experiment or a random experiment, okay, a trial or an experiment, okay, what type of experiment is whose outcome can be either only with only two possibilities, either it will give you a success or a failure. Okay, so there are only two possibilities. Suppose that in a trial you have two outcomes, either success or failure. Okay, so certainly then you will again go back and with the tied up with the this indicator random variable. Okay, so this is what we are going to happen now. So and we are going to give some another name here. Okay, for an experiment whose outcome can be classified as either a success or as a failure is performed. So suppose that a trial is performed whose outcome can be classified as either a success or as a failure is performed. So now let's say let x denote such random variable. Okay, so let x is equals to, so which assume the value 1 or 0 when the outcome is a success. Okay, and 0 when the outcome is a failure, and is such that probability of failure is with the probability 1 minus p, and probability of being success, giving success is probability p for some p in some 0 1 upper interval 0 1. So such type of random variable, okay, is called Bernoulli random variable. Okay, so this type of random variable is called a Bernoulli random variable that assumes the value either 1 or 0 respectively for either a success or a failure of as an outcome. Okay, so I'm giving you one. So you have this following PMF here. So probability, so this is a discrete random variable we are talking about. So the PMF of Bernoulli random variable is given by this. Okay, with so you have a definition here. Okay, so a random variable is said to be a Bernoulli random variable if it assumes see we have no restriction on this. Okay, first thing, we have no restriction is x equals to 1 or 0. This is very standard notation as an indicator random value. You can give -1 and 1 as well. Okay, I think we can give it because when you give the -1 and 1, okay, so what will happen is expectation is here is success is p. Okay, what will be the expectation here is probability of being success, that's going to be p. Okay, yeah, so that's assume the only value 1 and 0. Okay, so if a random variable say x be Bernoulli random variable if it assumes the values the values 0 or 1, okay, and its PMF is given by probability of x equals to 0 is equals to 1 minus p, and probability of x equals to 1 is equals to p, where for some p belongs to 0 1. Okay, so because why 0 and 1, because this assumes the value either 0 or 1 means either success or loss or failure. Okay, so either means like when you toss a coin, okay, one time, so let's denote head is a success, whether head your head is a success. So if you get head means 1, okay, all right, and if you don't get head means there is no head means 0 head. Okay, with probability 1 minus p. So you can understand that you can assume the value 0 or 1. Now suppose you perform now such an independent trial. So if you perform such an independent trial, so whatever you have performed just now, you repeat it n times independently. Okay, that will give you the definition of binomial random variable. Okay, so let's assume that let's suppose that n independent, and we are saying that those trials are as a Bernoulli trials. Okay, okay, so well, okay, we are assuming or we are notation is the such trial whose outcome is either a success or a failure. We are going to denote them as a Bernoulli trials. Okay, suppose that n independent Bernoulli trials are to be performed. Okay, means each trial either will result in success or failure. Okay, and you are noting down whether you are getting success there or not. Okay, that you are going to noting down. Okay, further, let's say assume that, means we have to assume some success probability. So that will be, we are having same. Okay, so assume that each trial results in a success with probability P, and in a failure with probability 1 minus P. Okay, right. So let's say let each and independent Bernoulli trials are to be performed, say xi. Okay, let's say each trial where I is equals to 1 to n. Okay, say xi, I is equals to 1 to n. Okay, now let x is equals to this x1 plus x2 plus and so on, the sum of n independent Bernoulli random variables. What it represents? It represents the number of successes that occurs in the n trials. So certainly this x, what is the maximum value or what is the minimum value? So either no success or all of the success, right? Or some of the successes. So this x will take the values from, so this x will take the values. So x takes the values from the set 0, 1, 2 and so on. So for the till n. So either no success means in the n time if you flip the coin, so either none of the head will occur or all of them head will occur, or 2 head or 3 head or and so on. Okay, so this random variable. Okay, so and you can also this x, we say that x follows binomial x is a binomial random variable with the parameter n and p. What is p? P denotes the probability of success at each trial. Okay, probability of success at each trial, each independent trial, and n is the number of time independent trials are occurring. Okay, so I used to, so n denotes the number of times independent trials are number, and it denotes the number of times independent trials. Okay, and p denotes the probability of success in each trial. Okay, independent trials performed, you can write total number of independent trials are performed, n. Okay, now once you have this, so you can certainly figure out what will be the possible PMF of. Okay, right. Okay, so let's try to write the its PMF. Okay, so its PMF, so you have, let's say, probability of x equals to I. How would you define the probability of this event? So what does that mean is, I'm writing here clearly that probability that, okay, or you can say probability of n outcomes containing I successes and n minus I failures. So this is the probability of n outcomes containing I successes and n minus I failures. So see, each trial is performed independently. Okay, so if you consider a particular sequence or particular experiment, okay, so then independently means you have probability of success is P in each trial, and that is happening I times, and failure is happening n minus I time. So since they are independent, so that is sitting in the product. So, but that is about a particular sequence in some order. Let's say first I successes and then rest of ni minus I is failure. Now vary how many time, how many different group of such I objects you can choose is NCI. So that will be the total probability of n outcomes containing I successes and n minus I failures. So where I is equals to, and that, see, this is nothing but the binomial coefficient. Okay, what is that? This is binomial coefficient of ith term, you can say, of this you have, this is 1 plus 1 sorry, p plus 1 minus p to the power n. So a plus b to the power n. Okay, so that you can see. Okay, that's nothing but the binomial coefficient. NCI is nothing but the binomial coefficient. So that's why it's have the name as binomial random variable. Okay, right. So once you have noted this is NCI PI 1 minus P to n minus I. So here I is, this is equals to I equals to 0, 1, 2 and so on n. And 0 otherwise. Okay, you take I any other value, that is 0. That's not possible. That's not a possible event, because X can assume either the value 0, 1, 2 and so on till n. Okay, right. So now, so this random variable X is said to be a binomial random variable. Okay, so this X, so already don't need, so X follows this binomial, so which is named as, I can see, it's a binomial variables with parameters n comma p. Okay, where n denotes the number of times the trials are performed, and p is the probability of success in each trial, and all trials perform independently. Okay, that's very important here. Okay, right. Now we can now certainly talk about what will be the possible mean and variance of this random variable. I'm going to give you the how to find expectation of this. I say let X follows. I'm going to write the symbol X follows binomial distribution with parameters n and p. Then find, or you can say show that expectation of X is equals to n into p, and the variance of X is equals to n into p into 1 minus p. Okay, once you establish this result, that certainly tells you that variance of X is going to be less than expectation of X. Okay, because 1 minus p is less than 1, so you can certainly find out. So here binomial random variable, you have the variance is always lies below the mean. Okay, the value. So how this verification will take place? So I can just give you the expectation. Okay, so now expectation of x is equals to summation I equals to 0 to n I time probability of x equals to I. This is going to be give you the expectation, right? So now summation I equals to 0 to n. So once I is sitting here, so I can certainly start with I equals to 1 to n, because I equals to 0 will no contribution. Okay, so what you will have is I time probability of x equals to I, that is I time NCI p to the power I time 1 minus p to the power n minus I. Now this is equals to summation I equals to 1 to n. Now if you rewrite this is equal to I n factorial time I divided by n minus I factorial time I factorial p to the power I time 1 minus p to the power n minus I. Now you can cancel this I with I factorial, that is going to be I get cancelled, and you will have I minus 1 factorial. And I can take n from here. I'm just taking adjusting something. So I'm taking out n time p. Okay, n time p out, and what is here is summation I equals to 1 to n minus 1 factorial divide by n minus I factorial n minus I factorial time I minus 1 factorial time p to the power I minus 1 time 1 minus p to the power n minus I. Now, if you look at this coefficient, this is nothing but n minus 1 c I minus 1. Okay, n minus 1 c I minus 1, that you can certainly verify. That's equals to now n time p summation I equals to 1 to n minus 1 c I minus 1 time p to the power I minus 1 time 1 minus p to the power n minus I, which you can certainly write n minus 1 minus I minus 1. Okay, so this is nothing but n time p, and this is nothing but the 1 p plus 1 minus p to the power n minus 1. A plus b to the power n minus 1. It's nothing but this. Okay, so this is equals to n time p. So p will get cancelled. 1 to the power n minus 1 is still 1. So similarly, you can do some this adjustment in the case of variance. Okay, and show that variance of this binomial random variable is nothing but n time p time 1 minus p. Now let's look at the representation of x again. Okay, and then so I have this is see x follows binomial distribution with parameters n and p. Okay, then x is equals to what? x1 plus x2 plus and so on plus xn. The sum of n independent Bernoulli random variables. So sum of n independent Bernoulli trials with success with probability of success p in each trial. So therefore this implies, I certainly tell you, expectation of x is nothing but summation of I is equals to 1 to n expectation of each xi. And you know what is expectation of each Bernoulli random variable is p for each I. Okay, so p is n times, so that's going to be n time p. Okay, similarly, variance of x is equals to summation of variance of xi. I is equals to 1 to n, since they are independent Bernoulli random variables. And we have shown that the variance of that Bernoulli random variable is nothing but p times 1 minus p. Okay, that you can also show. And that is n times, so you will have n times p times 1 minus. Okay, right. So this will be simple proof for showing that expectation of x is n times p and variance of x is n times p times 1 minus. Okay, right. Now, let's take one example. So it is known that discs produced by a certain company will be defective with the probability zero point zero one. Yes, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So it is known that disk produced by a certain company will be defective with probability 0.01 independently of each other. The company sells the disk in packages of 10, in packages of 10, and offer a money back guarantee that at most one of the 10 disks is defective. Then what proportion of package is returned so that we want to determine now. Okay, so it is known that the disk produced by a certain company will be defective with probability 0.01 independently of each other. So the company sells the disk in a package, okay, of 10 items, okay, and offer a money back guarantee that at most one of the 10 disks is defective. What proportion of packages returned? Now see, assume, so we are here assume that common assumption that customers always take advantage of this guarantee. Okay, right. So we assume that customer will always take advantage of the guarantee. So if something has happened, he will go and want to replace the things. Okay, right. Now let's denote. Let X denotes the number of defective items, or defective disks in a package. So either all of them are defective or none of them are effective. So defective. Okay. So X can take the values from 0, 1, 2, and so on till 10. And it is given that will be defective, certain disk produced by a company, it will be defective with the probability 0.01 independently of each other. So in each disk has the probability that it is defective with probability 0.01 or it is not defective with probability 0.99. Okay, right. So it's each trial is a Bernoulli trial. Okay, so certainly X. So okay, since okay, I can write here, since each disk okay uh, uh, will be defective with probability 0.01 and non-defective or working condition, you can say defective with probability 0.999 and independently of each other. Okay, and non-defective with probability 0.99. Okay, so therefore, I mean I can write therefore it is a Bernoulli trial. It is a Bernoulli trial. A Bernoulli trial. Moreover, these all Bernoulli trials are independent of each other. So therefore, what we can have is X follows. Also, I can mention here. Okay. Also each Bernoulli trial is independent of each other. Bernoulli trials are independent of each other. Okay. So this implies X follows binomial distribution with number of trials 10 with probability of success is 0.01. Okay. Now we are interested in what proportion of package is returned. So company offers a money back guarantee that at most one of the 10 disks is defective. So he will take return back if you have the number of defective items is more than one. Okay, so we are interested in finding probability that X greater than 1. Then the item will be or package will be returned, right? So that's going to be 1 minus probability of X less than equals to 1. And that is equals to 1 minus probability of X equals to 0 minus probability of X equals to 1. Okay, so now these are the binomial random variables. So you know what is this probability now. 1 minus 10 C0 0.01 probability of success to the power 0 0.99 to the power 10 minus 0, that is 10 minus 10 C1 0.01 to the power 1 times 0.99 to the power 9. Okay, so that you can use the calculator and you can verify that it's going to be approximately something like 0.005. So each package will return will have to be replaced with have this 0.005 means 0.5%. Each package is 10 items. Okay, so the probability of returning that item, that package, is probability of X greater than 1 because the company offers a money back guarantee that at most one of the 10 disks is defective. So at most one. Okay, so one he is taking the one is going to be defective. So if more than one, he will take back and give you money. So assume that customer will take the advantage always for the guarantee. Okay, so what is the meaning here? Then what we are interested in probability of the number of defective item in a package is more than 1. Okay, so that's why we are interested in probability of X greater than 1. Now, since each package will independently have to be replaced with probability 0.005. So each package will have the same distribution and they are independent. So means they perform the IID, independently identically distributed. So the law of large number tells you that in the long run 0.5% of the package will have to be replaced. This can be also an application, so I can write whatever I mentioned just now. Okay, so since each package will independently each package will independently have to be replaced with probability 0.005. Okay, since each package will independently have to be replaced with probability 0.005, therefore from the law of large numbers, it follows that in the long run in the long run 0.5% of the package will have to be replaced. Okay, so now you can certainly talk about the fact that suppose if someone buys 3 packages, okay, suppose if some customer buys 3 packages, what is the probability that exactly one of them will be returned? Okay, so each package will independently have to be replaced with the probability of success is 0.0. So this each package will follow, it will be a with either with replaced or it will not be replaced. So each package will also turns out to be a type of Bernoulli random variables. Okay, so if the customer buys 3 number of packages, then you have you can say let's say each packages independently. So now a question is here, right? The question is, someone buys 3 packages what is the probability that exactly one of them will be returned? Exactly one of them will be returned. Okay, so see, already specified that each package will independently have to be replaced with probability 0.005. So each package replacing or not will turn out to be a Bernoulli trial. So there are 3 packages Okay, and if you denote the y, the number of packages, okay, so that can be maybe all, none, 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that, okay, so let y, so I already used the notation, so let y denotes the number of packages that the person will have to return, Then, since of the independence and Bernoulli trial, so it is going to be a Bernoulli random binomial random variable with parameter n is 3 packages, with probability of success in each trial is 0.005. So what we are interested in, probability that y is equals to 1, exactly one of them is replaced or returned. Okay, so that's going to be 3C1.005 time 0.995 square. So that you can use by using the calculator, you can verify that that's going to be 0.015. Okay. Now the last comment of the binomial random variable is sum of two independent binomial random variable is again binomial. Okay. So that I can left as an exercise for you. That's very simple. Only you have to use the words. Okay. So I can leave that as an exercise here. If x1 and x2 are independent binomial random variables, having respective parameters are binomial random variables such that xi follows, you can say binomial with parameter ni comma p. So where I is equals to 1 and 2. Okay, then x1 plus x2, the sum of these two, will also follow the binomial with parameter n1 plus n2 comma. Okay, so now if you look at carefully that this exercise, it's nothing but that, see, x1 and x2 are independent binomial random variables. So for x1, so you have the binomial random variable with parameter n1 comma p, means number of independent Bernoulli trials are n1 in x1. Okay, and x2 you have the number of independent Bernoulli trials are n2. So if you perform the sum of these two, x1 plus x2, and they are independent, so there are total independent Bernoulli trials are n1 plus n2, and each has the probability of success with probability p, same. So in that sense, it will be straightforward that x1 plus x2 follows the binomial random variable with n1 plus n2 comma. Okay, so sum of two independent binomial random variable, a binomial random variable if each trial is of success with probability p. Okay.